Rashi, the Torah portion, Vezos Habracha, final Torah portion, third reading. Let us begin. We're in Devarim, chapter 33, verse 13. It's short today. Go into the blessing to Yosef, to Joseph. Well, the Yosef Amar, and to Joseph he said, who said? Who said? You know, like the kid said to his father, who said? Moses said. Mevareches Hashem artzai. Blessed Hashem will bless his land. God is going to bless his land. Mimegid. The word mimegid means sweetness. It means sweetness. He's going to bless sweetness, Hashamayim, of the heavens, Umital, from dew, with dew, in other words, Umitahaim, and the depths, Reveches Tachas, will lie below. Let's see Rashi. All this stuff is very metaphoric. Number 13. Yosef, Hashem blesses his land. Why? Because he was not amongst the portion of the tribes. Meretz Malaya Kol Tuv, a land that was all that is good. Yosef, like the land of Yosef. There was no land like his land. In other words, it had a special blessing. Right, the entire land of Israel is called the land of flowing of milk and honey, but that of Yosef is even greater. Mimegid, sweetness or delicacies, Lashon Adonim Vamesek. It means delicacies and sweets. Umatahim, what are the depth here, the depths of the water? The deep rises and moistens the land in the part of Yosef. Melamata, from below. You find with all the tribes, the blessing of Moshe, that resembles the blessing of Jacob. If you remember at the end of Genesis, the end of the book of Bereshit, Yaakov on his deathbed, he blessed his sons, who now Moshe is now blessing the 12 tribes that are the 12 sons. So they're similar. And that was a similar blessing before. It's interesting. I think I mentioned this last time. Why does Rashi mention this over here? Right, we're now we're after Reuven, Yehuda, Binyamin, Levi, and now, Levi, Binyamin, and now we're into Yosef. So 5 already, and only now we're mentioning that they're similar. Seemingly that was a point he could have made earlier. Why he makes it here? And on these words, the depths of the water. So, not certain. We have to look into that. Okay, I don't know if you got my question, but if not, I'll learn it next week too. All right, 14. We're all aboard. When we make it to us shamish, and the sweetness or the delicacies of the product that are a produce of the sun, when we make it gerish yirachim, and the sweetness and delicacies that are the yield of the moon. 14. Omi megid tuas shamish, delicacies that are the sun's crops. Shahaisa arza pchsucha lechama. because the land of Yosef was open to the sun, and would sweeten the fruits. Aha, because just take it out. Just take it out from here, please. Thank you. I'll take it out. So there are many hilltops in the part of Yosef, and those hilltops were open, I guess, to the sun, and they got a lot of produce from that. Gerish Yerachim, the moon's yield. If Yisheyesh perish lavanim mivash shalton, because there are fruits that the moon ripens, going shuyim duluyim, like cucumbers and pumpkins. Sha'aretz migaresh is a meitzv peris, michaydish lachaydish, that the earth drives out and brings forth the fruits month to month. Others in different months, there are different kinds of vegetables that are yielded because of the moon. Like he gave an example over here, right? Right, like cucumbers and pumpkins. Okay, give us Olam. And now you understand why pumpkins have to do with the negative, with the evil, the Sitter Acher. They grow by night, right? And what's a pumpkin, in the non-Jewish world? What is it? The dark side, Halloween.
Not in the Caribbean.
Huh?
Not in the Caribbean.
Well, pumpkins grow by the yield of the moon. It's a yield of the moon.
Halloween is not a Caribbean thing.
Well, okay. Yeah, we're talking about the Sitter Acher here. The other side. Interesting. Giva Isailam. Sorry, yeah, no, okay. Next verse. Continuing with Yosef and his blessing. Umeiroish hare kedem. Umeiroish means from the head. Hare kedem, of the mountains of the east. Right, which here translates the crops. The first crops of the early mountains. See what Rashi has to say in that. Mega givas elam, and from the sweetness of the givos are the hills, olam, eternal hills. Let's see, Rashi. So the beginning of the early mountains, right? Why is it early? Because kedem means that it means east, but the root word means that which comes first. As the sun rises on the east, it comes first, right? Oh, mivareches, and the portion of Yosef is blessed. Mereshis bishul aperitz, at the beginning of the ripening of the fruits. Mikadmin, because the mountains are early. Levake bishul periseim, to the first yield of ripening their fruits. Right. So I'm not certain what it means exactly, but here's Ephraim and Manasseh. They're on the Jordan River, right over here. You can see. Here's the Jordan River. They're on the west side of the Jordan River, right? They're on top of Yehuda. And they go actually from the river to the sea. The river to the sea. The Ephraim and Menashe. What's interesting, by the way, I think they might be the only ones that do that. They're the only ones that go from the river to the sea. Wow. You have actually Yehuda and Binyamin go sea to sea. but that's from the Dead Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, but not from the river to the sea. River to the sea is Ephraim and Menashe. Wow, new understanding what that means now. Right? So fascinating. So they get the first sun that rises to them, I guess, over the Jordan River. Davar Acher, another explanation of what it means, the beginning of the early mountains, that Magid Shekadma B'Riyatzin Lishar Ha'arim, that the early mountains means that they were created, preceded that of other mountains. In other words, they were older mountains. Right? Okay. 16. Umimeged Eretz Umalaya, and the sweetness of the land. Umeged Eretz, and the sweetness of the land of Malaya, and its fullness and its wholeness. Male means full, whole. Sheichne Sneh. And Ratzon means with the contentment, with the will, which means contentment. Sheichne said the one who dwells in the thorn bush, referring to God, right? His divine providence that dwelled in the thorn bush. Tuasa l'reish Yosef, and its produce to the head, or not Tavoya. No, Tavoya also means over here, may it come upon. It's not Tvuah. It come upon Yosef's head, Lekat Koid Nazir Echav, and upon the crown of the one who separated from his brothers. Right? Lekat Koid means to the head. Nazir, the one who separated Echav from his brothers, right? Because Yosef was separated from his brothers, right? Let's see Rashi in 16. So it means of the contentment or the goodwill of the one who rests in the thorn bush, meaning the one who dwells in the thorn bush. May his land be blessed out of the goodwill and the contentment of Hashem. Hanigla alai tchila, who first revealed to me bisneh in the thorn bush. Remember, who's speaking here is Moshe. God, he's speaking to God, right? Blessing the Jewish people, each tribe, by Moshe speaking to God and saying that that's where God first revealed to me in the thorn bush when he first came to him. And now may God's goodwill be a contentment in Yosef. Ritzain, goodwill, contentment. Nachas ruach means a pleasure, divine pleasure, or contentment. Pius, and to be pleased with. V'chein, called ratzin shebemikra. Anytime the word ratzin, which means ratzin means will, right? It means will, but in the context when reference to God, it means a contentment of that God has. In other words, because his will is being fulfilled, so there's a contentment, right? Tuasa may come brachazu, this blessing, l'reish Yosef, to the head of Yosef. Nazir Echab, the one who was separated from his brothers, shehufrash me'echav, that he was separated from his brothers, b'mechirosim, when he was sold. Okay. Last verse for today, 17. Still continuing with Yosef. Yosef gets a very lengthy blessing. Bechor Shorai Hadarlai. Bechor, the firstborn, Shorai, of his ox. Hadarlai is a glory, is a glory unto him. His ox is a glory unto him. The karne re'aim. And the karne means the horns of re'aim. Karnav bahem amim yinagach. Karnav, with his horns, he will gore with them nations. He will gore them. Yachdav, together, gore another the people together. He will gore Afsei Aretz, to the end of the earth. The Haim Vezos Ephraim, and they are the myriads of Ephraim. The Haim Alfei Menashe, and they are the thousands of Menashe. So this was a blessing to Yosef, and Yosef, we know, was divided into two, right? He got a double portion of blessing, being the firstborn of Rachel. And what was it? That his two sons become the tribes of Israel. Here it mentions the two sons. So let's see Rashi in 17 as we conclude. Bechor Shoirei, a firstborn of his ox. Yesh Bechor, the word Bechor, firstborn, Shu Lashon Gedula Malchus. And this is here not to be taken in a literal sense, but rather as the expression of greatness and sovereignty. Gedula Malchus. Shenemar says, Afani Bechor et Nehu. I too will give him the firstborn, meaning giving him greatness. Achein B'ni Bechor Israel, the firstborn son, is Israel, meaning God is conferring greatness upon the Jewish people, metaphorically speaking, as they are the firstborn. Okay? Bechor, firstborn, Melech HaYotzim Mimenu. So now he says, what is the firstborn over here? Meaning greatness. So what's the greatness over here? The greatness is a king that will emerge from him, Yeshua, and this is in reference to Joshua, Yeshua, right? Because he's from the tribe of Ephraim. Shoirei, his ox. So his ox, this is referring to Joshua, to Yeshua, that he's called an Akshekeiche Kosher Kishor, because he had the strength that is tough like an ox, that he can conquer many kings. Remember, there are 31 kings in the land of Canaan, and he conquered. Hadar Loi, the glory that is unto him, Nasan Loi is given to him, Shenemar, Nasat Mihoitcha Allah, as it says about Joshua, that God took upon from Moshe his glory and conferred it upon Joshua. That says in Bamidbar. The Kani Reim Karnav, and the horns of the Re'im are his horns. What does that mean? The strength of an ox is tough, right? And we just said that Joshua was conferred upon him great strength. He got great strength, right? And that's what it says. It's that of an ox. It's tough. Ain't kind of noise, but the horns of an ox are not beautiful. Ain't kind of noise, but whereas the re'aim, which I think is a goat, its horns are beautiful. However, its strength is not tough. And that's only Yeshua. So Moshe gave to Yeshua, he gave him the strength of an ox, the yoifi shel karnei re'im, and the beauty of the horns of a re'im. Got it? Oops. Okay. Continuing. Av Seyar, it's the ends of the earth. Shloishim ve'echad malachim. What does it mean the ends of the earth? 31 kings whom Joshua, Yeshua defeated in the land of Canaan. After Shekulam Eretz Israel, hayu. Is it possible that the 31 kings all were in the land of Canaan? There were so many. It was, it's a small area. What does it mean 31 kings? Right? That they all had dominion there. Ella, what does it mean? You don't have, in other words, a king or a ruler, that did not acquire for himself paltrin, a residence, and some kind of possession, Israel, in the land of Israel. Because it was important to all of these kings, 31 of them, that they should have their summer home, their getaway place, right? It wasn't they didn't have a dominion in the land of Israel. It was only 7 nations in the land of Israel. What 31 kings? There are many other kings that had some kind of possession over there, of some kind of home, be it a summer getaway, be whatever it is, in the land, right? Why did they have it? Because the land of Israel was important to all of them. A possession converted by the multitude of nations. Okay. So, in other words, a very distinguished, important land. And there the myriads of Ephraim, those have been gored. They are the myriads. Yeshua. In other words, that Yeshua that came from Ephraim, he gored, meaning killed many that came, enemies against him. And they're the thousands of Menashe, which is much less. Right? Myriads is like tens of thousands, and this is thousands. Hey, Lafim, these are thousands. Hara Gidja and Bimidjan. This is referring to Gideon, who is from the tribe of Menashe, that he killed in Midian were thousands. Shenamar, as it says, Zevach Salmuna Karkor, that the Zevach and Salmuna and Karkor, Kamalafim Nimnusham, there were thousands that were accounted there that were killed. In other words, remember that this is a prophecy. Some of the blessings that Moshe confers upon the tribes are prophecy of things that are going to happen in the future. And this is one of them, right? With that, we conclude. Well, see ya. So, just some interesting points here. You have a little time. So yesterday spoke about Binyamin, if you remember. God's beloved one will dwell securely beside him. He hovers above him all day, and he dwells between his shoulders. Remember, we learned that yesterday. What does it mean that God dwells between his shoulders? So Binyamin and his portion was the Beis Hamikdash, part of the Beis Hamikdash. Both Yehuda and Binyamin, kind of. And so it says here that God dwells between the shoulders, and we explain because shoulders are lower than the head, and Temple Mount is 23 arms lengths, so approximately 35 feet lower than Me'ain Etim, which is the high point, right? And that's where the divine presence is. So, right. That because that's where the Holy Temple is, of course. So we need to understand what's so great about. First, we bring out Rashi brings out right that there's something great about being at a high place, but not the highest place, right? So why would a place lower than the highest point be the place for the divine presence? So the Rebbe explains this not according to simple meaning, right? This is according to Hasidus. What's the purpose of the Beis Hamikdash? It's to serve as an illumination and to affect and make an impact on the entire world, right? That's what it was. It's there to make an impact and effect in the entire world, even in those areas in the world that are much lower and further removed. Therefore, the Beis Hamikdash it wasn't in the highest point, but it was of a high point, right? A little lesser than the highest point, to emphasize that the purpose is not, if it was the high point, then it'd be like, top of the Tibetan mountain, gaze your navel. That's what it'd be. And that's what you have here in Montreal, but I think it's throughout probably the world, but definitely here in Montreal by Catholics, that all of their getchkas, all of their places of idolatry are on the highest point, specifically the highest point, because their idea is to separate yourself from the world. But the idea of the Holy Temple is not to separate yourself from the world. It's to be connected to the world, to influence the world, to inspire worldliness. So therefore, it's got to be a high point, but not the highest point. It's got to be in a place in between, so to speak, interfacing, if you will, that allows for the light of Hashem to be introduced into the world, to affect the world, and to change the world, right? So, from this we can learn, in connection to the Beis Hamikdash, a holy temple, what our personal holy temple, right? We all have a personal holy temple, that the soul of our soul, the godly soul, that is, cannot remove itself completely from the rest of the individual, right? In other words, from the body and then the animal soul. The godly soul has to come down a bit from its high point, right? I mean, after all, it is a godly soul, so it is very lofty, and it has to engage in what we call a birur v'zichuch, a refinement and a cleansing of the body and the animal soul of the individual in order to transform the individual entirely, that the entire person should be a mishkan, should be a sanctuary for God. Right? You got that? So in the person also, it's the neck, right? The head is where the godly soul is, right? And the left ventricle of the heart is where the animal soul is, right? How do you get from here to here? How do you speak to the animal soul in you? You have to go through the neck, right? Yeah, it started. I brought it all to with Avichai, brought it to the front. He left. I don't know how much he did, but Avichai is there. I don't know who else. I think Caesar, you might have to call him. So it's got to go through the narrow part of the neck, which is between the shoulders, right? So the holy temple serves like the neck. In other words, to bring down from the lofty light of God, which is the lofty light of your godly soul, to bring it down and to be able to affect the heart. So that's the the neck of the individual that is sort of the narrow point to bring the godly into now what will be the animal soul of the individual and the body in order to refine it. So therefore, the holy temple reflects that notion. It's of a high point, but not the highest point, which then would give the indication that, separate yourself from God, right? Be up on the Tibetan mountain, separate yourself. Separate yourself to be connected to God, rather. Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. To be connected, separate yourself from the world to be connected to God, as opposed to that it's now the neck. It's now lower point, right? It's not the highest point in Jerusalem. It's a bit lower because the whole point is take from the high to be the interface and to bring it into the lower parts of the world, meaning to be a light unto the nations. And individually in us, it means that it should influence our animal soul, right? To inspire it. And as we learned this morning, when we were learning Chassidus, right, that it too should love God. B'chol lavavcha, that you should love God with all of your heart, right? And as Rashi explains, the simple meaning, it should say libcha, the proper Hebrew, b'chol libcha, with all of your heart, but it adds an extra base to imply the two hearts that we have, the heart of the godly soul and the heart of the animal soul. In the right ventricle of the heart, we have the expression of the godly soul there. And the left ventricle, which is full of blood, which is the vital, soul of the vitality of the animal soul giving life to the body, that it too should love God. Right? The animal soul should also love God, not just your godly soul. If then you would divorce your higher self from your lower self.
That's why it says love God with all your heart, because it applies both.
Well, in English, you're not giving justice to it, right? You understand what I explained, but you say it all your heart. Well, you only got one heart. No, both hearts, because the godly soul is expressed in your right ventricle and your animal soul is in your left ventricle, right? As expressed, right? In metaphoric terms, at least, right? So it means both hearts. Which you're right, all your hearts, right? It's not written in plural though. It's written in singular, but the extra base is hinting to that part of us, of the animal soul. And that's the idea of the holy temple. And we are a microcosm of the holy temple, right? We are a microcosm of it. So in us, the whole idea of the godly soul that we have is not that I should have an experience of godliness that's removed from the world. No. It has to engage my other side, my negative side, my animal soul and body. And it too comes to the love of God. And that's why the base of Mikdash is between the shoulders, metaphorically. Got it? Beautiful thought. Um, Second, let's see, I've got something more here. So let's do another thought of the Rebbe. Here. Torah tziva Moshe Merasha Kilas Yaakov. The Torah that Moses commanded us is a legacy of the gathering, the assembly of Yaakov, right? It's an inheritance to the Jewish people, right? The Torah that Moshe commanded us, it's an inheritance to. Got that? That's from Sunday. This is verse 4 in chapter 33. Go back to Sunday to look at that verse if you want to see it. Okay. The words Meirasha Kihilas Yaakov, an inheritance to the congregation or the assembly of Yaakov, right? This, by the way, this verse is a very important verse. You know why? Besides, it's in the Torah, of course, but it has very great importance because it's the first words of Torah that you teach a child. The Torah that Moshe commanded us, which gives us a connection all the way back to Mount Sinai, right? The Moshe commanded us this from God, right? Is a legacy, is an inheritance to the assembly of Yaakov. In other words, it's our inheritance. That's what you first words you teach a child are from these words. And it's not the first words are not even Shema Yisrael. You know, it's interesting. In other words, that they have an awareness. A child has an awareness. Well, I wouldn't even say have an awareness. You're teaching to them before they have an awareness what these words mean. Because if they're 2 years old and they can talk, this is what you're teaching them. So they don't understand what an inheritance means. They don't understand a legacy, right? But it doesn't matter because the soul does. So their soul understands it. And it's what you teach them. So these 3 words are an expression that connects to the inwardness and the essence of us to God and to Torah and to Israel. And in an equal way for every single Jew. And that's why you're teaching it to a child then, right? Because it's equal to that child. Meirasha. So the word Meirasha, there are places where the Torah is given a definition of being an inheritance, as in our verse over here. And then there are some places that it's considered like a gift, right? Got it? Right? Some places it's a gift. Torah is called a gift, and some places it's called an inheritance. Here it's called an inheritance, right? What's the difference between an inheritance and a gift? An inheritance is something a gift, right? So if I were to gift this to you, right, then it leaves my boundaries, my possession. It leaves me and it goes to you, to another person, right? So I lost something, right? I lost something. I don't have the thing. I don't have the ownership of the thing, right? But inheritance means, and this is an interesting idea, the inheritor stands in the place of the inherentee. In other words, when, like for example, parents pass away, right? The child inherits the parents, right? In the concept of it, what it means, inheritance means the child stands in the place of the parents. So are the parents there? Yes. The child's just in the place of the parents. So it's not transference. It's not a transference, right? It becomes automatically the inheritor. So like here, if I wanted to gift this to Menachem Hillel, I have to do something to give it to you. Because it's not inherently yours, right? But when the child inherits from the parent, it's inherently the child's. So it's automatic. It's an automatic transference, right? So that's greater than a gift in that respect, right? So in our instance, Torah is when it's considered a gift, means these are things that God chose to give us a Torah to the Jewish people. But right, in other words, it's about God that He gave the gift. Like I give the gift of my phone to Menachem Hillel, and then it's about me, and my desire to give it. It's not about you. You're just a recipient, but it's about me making that choice, right? But when it comes to an inheritance, it's then the Jewish people receive the Torah automatically, being that they are the inheritors of God. Why? Because we are totally bound up with God as one, just like a child is bound up with the parent. And that's why the child inherits the parent automatically, because it shows on a deeper bond. The gift doesn't show that. The inheritance does, of the deeper bond. Now, since this definition of Torah as an inheritance flows from the position of the Jewish people that we're the inheritor of God, right? It's understood that, is there a distinction between me and another Jew in this respect? Absolutely not. Right? Because we're all equally have that measure of being the inheritor of God. Every Jew has that. And this is the word kihilas, right? The term kihilas, assembly we use, we translate it, right? Emphasizes the unity that is between the Jewish people as one entity, a kohol. In other words, it's not like the word kohol is not, there are terms that can be that are expressing many people coming together. This is expressing the oneness of the congregation, as opposed to a group of people together, right? So it's about the entirety of the group rather than the individuals that come together of a group.
Okay.
Right? That's what it expresses. In Yaakov, we have the name Yaakov to refer to people, the Jewish people. We have Yaakov, Israel, and Yeshurun. What's the difference between them? Israel and Yeshurun are more higher level names of the Jewish people. Yaakov is the essential name of the Jewish people. And that's why Yaakov expresses that it's not about the unique value of the Jew, because then that's bringing up their value. Yaakov means heel. Heel is the lowest point, right? So it's not bringing. And therefore that brings out the real unity of the Jewish people. Because if it was a unity that's based on our virtue, well, then one's more virtuous, one's less virtuous, right? But if it's the heel, well, we all kind of equally have a heel, so to speak. Brain, everybody has a different brain, right? Everybody has a different understanding. Everybody, some people have an IQ of, 145. Some people have an IQ of 110, right? But the heel brings out, emphasizes at least, the sameness between us, the equality that there is between us, between the Jewish people. And therefore, that's what it means. Rashi Kilis Yaakov. Wow, that was amazing. Okay. Tanya coming up in a few moments.